No, you dare not make war upon cotton. No power on earth dares to make war upon it. Cotton is king. It was not light that was needed, but fire. It was not the gentle shower, but thunder. 2 sentences, 2 worlds. On one side, Senator James Henry Hammond's swaggering boast from the Senate floor in 1858. On the other, Frederick Douglass's searing demand for a storm to sweep slavery and the world of King Cotton away. Those poles, economic power and moral protest, frame our story today.
If you're hearing echoes of reform, camp meetings, women's activism, boycotts of slave-made goods, and then bam, book bans and backlash, you're in the right episode. We'll follow the pathways from revival tents and anti-slavery parlors to printing presses and factory floors.
And along the way, we'll track how a global cotton empire enriched planters and Northern industrialists, why many Northerners still opposed abolition, and what this concept of free soil did and did not mean, and ultimately how a book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, is going to shift the public conversation.
So let's start in the decades after 1800, where the Second Great Awakening sparks a moral fire. This is really the thing that gets everything going. Evangelical energy pours into reform, temperance, schools, prisons, and crucially, anti-slavery activism. Women, white and black, step into public life as organizers, petitioners, and lecturers.
It's kind of like all of these things we've been talking about are connected.
It's almost like there's a bigger story here.
Wow,
Okay.
Amazing. So the things that are new in the decades after 1800, they are also disruptive, right? Because reform gives women practical political skills. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
What are the women going to do with that?
Having
Very
a brain
risky.
and a voice.
Very risky.
So the Grimke sisters are going to take the stage along with Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and they are going to learn some hard lessons at the 1840 World's Anti-Slavery Convention in London, where female delegates are going to be sidelined. And 8 years after that, they are going to have their own convention, and that will be at Seneca Falls in New York. And free black women, church leaders, organizers, and orators, they're all going to push simultaneously for both anti-slavery and women's rights. And so this is navigating racism and sexism inside and outside reform circles.
Yeah, so we really see this larger story coming to the fold. And part of the problem for the women's movement is they have to figure out where race is going to fit in here. But then someone like Sojourner Truth comes along, and her 1851 Akron address exists. First of all, there's multiple versions. Some are sort of racialized and are problematic as a result. But the anti-woman dialect rendering that we see in some of the more contemporary sources and at the time was published in the anti-slavery newspaper, The Bugle. That's where we can really, I think, get to the heart of what she was trying to say. And remember, she's knocking on the door not just of the anti-slavery movement, but also wanting a place in the women's rights movement at the same time. She says, quote,
No way. You're not saying this.
Why can't I say
Because I should get to say it.
You know what? Dr. Garrison, at this point, you're supposed to say, and ain't I a woman?
And ain't I a woman?
He can play one, though.
Yeah.
Fine.
We're actors.
In the
But no,
Shakespearean,
go ahead.
in the Shakespearean tradition, I'm going to step outside my assigned role and read
All right.
in a respectful way.
Go ahead.
She said, quote, I want to say a few words about this matter. I am a woman's... Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I thought. She said, I want to say a few words about this matter. I am a woman's rights. I have as much muscle as any man and can do as much work as any man. I have plowed and reaped and husked and chopped and mowed, and can any man do more than that? When men claimed women were too delicate for public life, she countered, the poor men seem all in confusion and don't know what to do. Why children? If you have women's rights, give it to her and you will feel better.
And poor men seem all in confusion. Man, talk
Yeah.
about continuity in history.
No kidding.
You know, I hear that sometimes when I get home. But anyway, so what's the point? Zero theatrics, just precision and a lot of force. So she grounded women's rights and abolition in lived experience. Labor, endurance, moral authority. It wasn't an abstract argument about equality. It was proof, standing there in flesh and in voice. This, combined with revivalist notions of individual sin and salvation, moved the reform into the political arena. If slavery is a sin, Christians must act, and women would lead the way.
Yeah, and anti-slavery is going to take many forms. When we're sort of combining these movements of the anti-slavery movement and women, it's going to take many forms. And so an example of an anti-slavery movement is going to be colonization, kind of like a solution to this problem, right? And the American Colonization Society is going to be founded in 1817, and their idea was to send free Black Americans to Africa. And Liberia is going to emerge from that project. And by 1867, more than 13,000 immigrants had gone to Liberia. But free Black leaders largely rejected colonization as a dodge, just kind of like as a way to, wipe your hands of it and move on.
Yeah, it wasn't very practical in any way, shape, or form. But it's worth pointing out that even a young Lincoln would kind of dance around with the idea of colonization as a viable option. But it just was never supported by the Black intellectuals, the Black abolitionists who saw this as just a cop-out, right? Another form that abolition will take will be African-American-led abolition. So you enter David Walker. And his appeal to the colored citizens of the world in 1829, it wasn't just a pamphlet, it was an absolute thunderbolt. A free Black man born in Wilmington, North Carolina, Walker had seen the contradictions of the Republic up close. His mother was enslaved, his father free. He watched how the law sliced a family in half. So eventually, when he settles in Boston, he opened a used clothing shop near the wharves and kind of quietly turned into the epicenter of Black political thought. And eventually, he decides to publish his appeal. And in this, Walker didn't argue for gradual emancipation or this colonization that was starting to emerge. He condemned both as simply moral evasions. And so he said, quote, "America is more our country than it is the whites. We have enriched it with our blood and tears." And then that argument there is really profound, but also incredibly radical, because with the cadence of a prophet, he's going to warn enslavers, quote, "Unless you speedily alter your course, you and your country are doomed." I mean, that's pretty stark, right? He's saying abolition is not a persuasion, it's a judgment upon the country, and it has to happen now.
And it's one thing to write it, but then you have to get it into people's hands who are actually going to take it to heart and want to do something about it. So Walker's going to smuggle copies of his appeal into the South. He's going to have it sewn into sailors' clothing. It'll be folded into bundles of fabric. It'll be hidden among used clothing, and word of it is going to spread like rumor and wildfire, even so much so that Southern governors are going to offer bounties for his capture. And North Carolina set the reward for him at $10,000 alive and $1,000 dead.
That's a lot of money back then.
That's a lot of money. Laws were passed across slave states forbidding inflammatory publications. And this appeal by Walker, it terrified the planter class so much because it came from within the Black community and it spoke directly to enslaved people.
And man, did this put a target on this guy's back.
Yeah.
So much so, suddenly Walker is gone. He disappears. Well, he doesn't disappear, but he disappears. He disappears from the living, let's say. So in 1830, in August, just months after the third edition of the appeal appeared, he was found dead near his Boston home. The coroner chalked his death up to tuberculosis, which, at the time, I mean, that was a more of a common thing. But friends and historians have long suspected him being poisoned, and maybe a Southern agent sent north, maybe a local conspirator. No one ever proved or got to the bottom of the actual cause of his death.
Right, but ultimately, though he was silenced by either this sort of assassination or because of a disease, he became a martyr. He turned into something much larger than just simply one man. He became this message that reverberated across America. And the legacy was this idea that freedom wasn't just a gift that if they were lucky, if slaves were lucky, that whites would grant upon them. It was a right that black people should stand up and claim, and even advocated that this might have to happen through violence. His appeal is going to push the anti-slavery movement from this kind of moral questioning to this immediate demand. It's going to shape the next generation of activists.
Right, and not eventually. Why not now? And that immediate approach is then picked up by William Lloyd Garrison. His publication, The Liberators, began in 1831. No compromise, no delay. And he would go on to help found the American Anti-Slavery Society in 1833. Douglass, initially allied with Garrison, will later diverge from him, moving toward more political abolition. Yet their shared project is moral suasion. Persuade the conscience, and the law will follow.
Suasion, that is going to be the word of the episode.
Suasion.
It's a good word.
Are you related to William Lloyd Garrison?
You mean great-great-great-grandpa Will?
Yeah.
I have to think that I am. I mean,
After that, you're like, you mean great? No, absolutely not.
Who knows? Maybe. I would have to. I mean, it makes sense.
He's somebody you would want to claim.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And
Yeah,
there does
not
seem
all
to
of them
be-
would you want to claim, but
There's
I
kind of
think
a
he-
direct line from William Lloyd Garrison, the Liberator, to me and A Push for All.
Oh my
poetic.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
this podcast sponsored by William Lloyd Garrison.
Yeah.
And the Liberator.
And his ghost.
And so his good buddy Frederick Douglass, as Mr. Hill mentioned, his story it's much too wonderful and too long for us, to just do in one episode. But let's give it its due. He was born enslaved on Maryland's Eastern Shore in 1818, and he never knew his exact birth date. And this was something that a lot of enslaved people had to reckon with, is that they often didn't know birth dates. They didn't know even real names. And he later is going to choose February 14th for himself, which was his agency, right? His ability to reclaim his own record for himself. He's going to learn to read in secret. He's actually going to trick kids down at the wharf in Baltimore how to teach him how to read, right? Was it Baltimore?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you read his narrative, just the first chapter from his narrative, he talks about that, and it's super interesting. He's also going to learn to read from his enslaver's wife, and he's going to start trading bread for letters. So those kids I was talking about down at the wharf, he would trade them, scraps of food for them to teach him letters. And this act of literacy, this is his rebellion. Again, another form of resistance, another form of agency. And it's really important when we talk about people who are being oppressed that we don't just talk about the oppression, but we talk about, all of the things subtle and very obvious that these people were doing to try to change their circumstances.
And the energy that it would take to perform agency in his case. And I always try to get my kids in class to appreciate, the privilege in the room, myself included, and having literacy, education, reading, writing, all of those things given to me. And I didn't have to work for it. It was just assumed. And, education is the foundation for everything. So he says that once he grasped the power of reading, he understood why enslavers feared it so much. In his words, knowledge unfits a child to be a slave. After a brutal beating from the slave breaker, Edward Covey, Douglass fought back physically and spiritually, later writing that the confrontation rekindled his manhood. That defiance, he said, was the turning point in my career as a slave.
Yeah, and I'm going to give a shout out to my B7 class today. We had a really great discussion on Frederick Douglass.
Good for Garrison's B7.
Way
We're
to
proud
go,
of you guys.
B7. Way to-
You know,
way to go.
sometimes I don't know
School's
about
been
those
talking
guys.
about you guys.
But,
B7.
But
People are
today,
talking.
B7 really took a good step. But in our discussion, one of the things we just said was right in line with what Mr. Hill just said. For a lot of us, education is like a burden. It's something it's seen as something you have to get through. It's something you have to deal with. But for Frederick Douglass, education was literally the key to his freedom. Because as some of my students were talking about, it wasn't until he learned about another world that he could start imagining himself there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought that was really cool. And Frederick Douglass, I mean, if you haven't read his autobiography, it's short, it's quick, but it's got to be one of the most American stories of all time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking for an American story, like someone who literally pulls themselves up, who makes a life for themselves and seizes opportunity out of the jaws of slavery. I mean, that's truly an American story.
Truly one of the most inspiring things.
A kid asked me today, why haven't they made a movie about Frederick Douglass? And I was like, I don't know.
They love to do all these biopics, don't they?
I don't know why. They did that really good 12 Years a Slave. That was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solomon Northup.
Well, I think they would have to include in that biopic, if they ever did it of him, he was quite a womanizer.
Well,
then there was
he was pretty
pregnant
dynamic.
pause
He
there.
had a few marriages, and actually he married a white woman, at least one, which, again, for that time, I mean, it's just incredible details all the way through.
What a life. I kind of think it's because it's such a it'd be difficult to take that on. That's a huge story. Someone would have to really do it. Maybe they do like a...
But they did Napoleon.
Yeah, that's true, but it wasn't very good.
No.
Maybe they'll do like
Joaquin
an 8
Phoenix was the
episode.
wrong
Yeah, he was definitely the wrong choice for that. How did we get on that? I blame myself. In
Meryl Streep could play Batman and still be the right choice.
Yeah,
That's right.
My favorite line
do like
from
Meryl Streep.
Modern Family.
So, okay, back to Douglass. In 1838, disguised as a sailor with borrowed papers, he's going to escape north by train, steamboat, and reach New York in about 24 hours. I mean, what a quick journey there. He described the feeling. Thank you, Market Revolution. He described the feeling as stepping into a new world, saying, quote, "I felt as one might feel upon escape from a den of hungry lions." But freedom didn't come without peril, right? Fugitive slave hunters, constant suspicion, and the weight of then telling the story in a country that didn't want to hear it.
And he began telling that truth on abolitionist stages. He is going to first kind of fall under the wing of William Lloyd Garrison, and audiences are completely stunned by him. And here was a man that they'd been told couldn't exist, an enslaved person who was a formerly enslaved person who was eloquent and literate and political. And people just couldn't believe it, because even if you hadn't seen slavery, even if you hadn't experienced it firsthand, you know, you still had these thoughts about the races and what people could do and couldn't do, and you know, so this was so transformative. And so when he publishes his narrative in 1845, it's going to sell tens of thousands of copies and expose the daily mechanics of slavery with a lot of precision and a moral fury.
And like everything else, that fame that the book will bring also made him a target. Southern papers published his whereabouts. Bounty hunters looked north. Friends urged him to leave the country. So he did actually spend a couple of years in Britain and Ireland, where he lectured to packed halls, met reformers, and saw a society there that, for all its faults, treated him as a man. British supporters even raised the money to purchase his legal freedom.
Again, what a story.
Yeah.
So when he came home in 1847 back to the United States, he was no longer anyone's protege. He founded his own newspaper, the North Star, great name, in Rochester, and began charting his own course. So Garrison was famous for rejecting the Constitution as a covenant with death, and really saying, like, politics is not the way to go. We need suasion.
He said that, one of my favorite lines was that the Constitution was basically dripping with the blood of enslaved people.
Yeah, he really saw the paradox of the Constitution. He saw it as so problematic that politics wasn't the way to change this. But Douglass, he sees that politics is a weapon, and that ultimately that might be the way to change the position of these slave people of the South. He's going to argue that its principles, the Constitution's principles, when properly read, did have this path to creating freedom.
And this was the break between Garrison and Douglass. Douglass is going to move from this pure moral suasion that Garrison liked to use to this political abolitionism, urging reform through law, through legislation, and ultimately what will become known as the Republican Party. And his life is going to bridge this moral, intellectual, and political phases of the movement and the evolution from conscience in people's minds to real action.
So back to the slavery issue. If slavery was such a moral abomination, as we are seeing, people like Douglass and Garrison describe it, why did so many Northerners oppose abolitionism? It's the old, ugly term, racism. Widespread fear that free black labor would undercut white workers and unsettle hierarchies. Like at least I know that I'm above somebody else in the social hierarchy, right?
Kind of ties back to Bacon's Rebellion.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of does.
Nice.
I like how your voice went up a little bit. Nah, Bacon. Add economic ties. Northern merchants, insurers, and mill owners profited from slave-grown cotton, and many feared unrest or simply disliked Garrisonian radicalism.
Yeah, and everybody's implicated, right? That's kind of what you just said, that even people in the North, even if you're not witnessing slavery every day or have never witnessed it, you are implicated. You are buying cotton, that you're buying cloth that is comes from fields where enslaved people are being violently treated. And speaking of violence, the hostility toward abolitionists does turn violent. In 1835, a Boston mob is going to drag William Lloyd Garrison through the streets. Then in the Midwest, very close to us, in Alton, Illinois, just across the Mississippi River in 1837, a pro-slavery mob is going to murder abolitionist editor of a newspaper, Elijah Lovejoy, and destroy another one of his printing presses. They're going to throw it in the Mississippi River. And that was happening all over the country. But Lovejoy's going to become a martyr to both free expression and the anti-slavery cause.
Yeah, well, abolition and its opponents represented these polar opposites, right? Mid-century politics is going to present this sort of unique third camp, like this almost political middle ground that's called the Free Soil Party. It's kind of a third party that kind of presents itself. And its whole premise is really simple. It was not in opposition to slavery's existence. It was in opposition to slavery's expansion into the West. And the whole idea of free soil was not that you could buy it for free, but that Western soil, Western land should be reserved for free white men to own. And the fear was that slave owners would move and take over and the plantation system would spread, right? So it's about white equality, not necessarily freedom.
Yeah, and it's not anti-racist at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we should say that it did push a lot of people at least a little closer to the anti-slavery camp.
Right. And it just allows for such a complexity of issues regarding slavery. I mean, it's overly simplistic to say, hey, we're going to fight a civil war because of slavery, but at the same time, you remove that as a variable from the equation, and you have no civil war.
Right.
So it's just complex. So that slogan that you mentioned, Dr. Garrison, free soil, free labor, free men, captured a moral economy of opportunity. It resonates really widely, would eventually shape the new Republican Party and set the stage for sectional crisis. But it also reveals limits. Many free soil voters weren't abolitionists. They just didn't want slavery or black people next door.
So many Northerners ultimately oppose abolition. We can see that more and more found themselves kind of edging toward the anti-slavery tent, right, or the camp, right? And maybe one of the big moments. We all like contingency, right? It's fun. It's interesting.
Explain what contingency means.
We like this idea that when we're telling stories, there's an event or a person or a moment that changes everything. And everything else is contingent upon that thing happening. And a lot of times it's oversimplified and there's more complicated. But,
and it's definitely in hindsight that we recognize these things.
But it does make for a cool story to tell. So in our story, we're going to say that a big pivot moment happens in 1852 when Harriet Beecher Stowe, one of these sort of middle-class reformers, women's rights advocate, also an anti-abolitionist from an abolitionist from an abolitionist family, is going to publish Uncle Tom's Cabin. And the book carried the language of moral reform, but it goes into the many different homes and parlors and imaginations of ordinary Americans who had never really thought about slavery or confronted slavery directly. It would be serialized in a very popular magazine, The National Era, and eventually released in 2 volumes. It sold more than 300,000 copies that first year and another 200,000 in Britain, making it one of the best sellers of the 19th century.
In the book, she has scenes of family separation and of enslaved resistance and Christian compassion. And what this is going to do for people in a very vivid way is humanize enslaved people for Northern readers. I think that's important. Is this was, if you think about intended audience, this is for a Northern audience. And stage adaptations are also going to occur for this book, and they're going to multiply its reach. And Lincoln famously quipped to her, "So you're the little woman who wrote the book that made this great war." And it's almost certainly apocryphal. Did I say it right? No.
Apocryphal.
Yeah, apocryphal. That means like
False.
false, fake.
Yep,
We've
made
talked
up.
about that in the other episode. And this appears to probably be family lore in late 19th century retellings. It's not contemporary records, but I think the idea still stands, and it's still relevant that this book really starts to shift Northerners' view of slavery. And even if Northerners were not directly involved with this, although everybody is implicated, they started thinking like, okay, it's my duty to try to do something about this.
It made it more personal as a human being. Like you said, Northerners, many of whom had never met a slave, had no idea what slavery looked like, sounded like. But when you can read that in the novel, the novel will matter because it reframes the conversation. It made slavery so intimate and a moral crisis for readers who had treated it as distant politics.
Okay, let's move south now. Let's talk about how does cotton become quote
It's
unquote
getting
king?
warmer.
Yeah. How does cotton become king in the South? And we've got to start with technology and land. So the cotton gin, we've talked about it before, invented in the 1790s. I hate to say this phrase because I don't know what Garrison's going to do, but it made short staple cotton.
Oh boy.
Aren't you glad I explained this already?
you know what?
I gave context already. We have the context for this.
All right. It made short staple cotton profitable across the interior South. And, land is going to become more available due to forced removal. So Southern planters are going to be able to plant more. Enslavers are going to move enslaved people by the hundreds of thousands in the domestic slave trade, and output and exports are going to soar for the South. And by 1860, cotton made up roughly 60% of U.S. exports. And yeah, that was not the soundboard. And the U.S. is going to supply a large majority of the world's raw cotton, which is going to feed British mills.
As well as New England, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me whistling. I don't know if I'm a fantastic whistler.
So let's see it. Let's do it again, because I am too.
Do you hear the vibrato?
Hold on.
I like the vibrato,
let me try.
that quaver in your voice.
Let me try.
How about this? I can go out and in.
I can't do that.
You mean like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
How
you heard
loud
the-
can you whistle? I'm not going to do that for our.
You can do
our
the super
audience.
loud one, Mr.
Hill
Hill.
can do
Everybody
it
knows you've got the
loud.
loud.
Oh yeah.
I've got the vibrato though.
You got the vibrato,
Just
that
saying.
quiver, that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
only whistling.
Yes.
Okay. Impressive.
So, what I like to tell my all right. Yeah.
Now you have to
My
keep
lips
that
are
up.
chapped, I think.
You have to keep that up during the rest of the episode
No.
if you do that.
All right, sorry, go.
I like to tell my students. So imagine that I don't know, a country has 60% of their economy dedicated to oil, and imagine that the world said, "Hey, that oil is doing bad things to the world and to the environment, and for the greater good, we need you to give up that tremendous source of wealth and just kind of let it all go." And of course, we can imagine all the problems that would cause, and that's essentially where the South was. They had become so dependent on this one cash crop that their entire economy and the nation's economy and the global economy was more or less tied to it. And this money is staggering. You've got 2 billion pounds of cotton in 1860. And northern factories were becoming enriched from southern cotton. They called it the Negro cloth, and they would actually, northern factories would make this cloth to sell back to plantations, so plantations would have something very limited for their slaves to own, right? So you've got these huge networks of finance. You've got New Orleans British bankers, New Orleans merchants, all tied together. It's really astonishing how big of an economic impact this one product had.
Yeah, I don't think you can underscore how huge the economic. This is a juggernaut, and it shapes ideology. So as anti-slavery and free soil politics grew, Southern leaders shifted from calling slavery a necessary evil to a positive good. You had people like John Calhoun, who said so baldly in 1837. George Fitzhugh argues that enslaved people were better off than northern wage slaves, he called them. And it's this form of paternalism, but with teeth and shackles.
And paternalism, this argument, this justification said that masters cared for dependents as if they, were like children. And it used that to rationalize coercion. And it would also do that with, women and children and, obviously enslaved people here. But enslaved families, their faiths and their work routines, they show both obviously oppression, but also, as we mentioned earlier, resilience and resistance and agency, and we have to really keep that in mind.
And that's what's going to allow historians decades, and it will be decades later, to completely undermine this idea of a paternalistic South. And so it's going to be the slaves themselves that will tell a different story. But for now, this idea of cotton is king, that's a big deal. It wasn't just swagger. It was a bet. Right? That, look, the world is so dependent upon us. Henry Hammond was basically saying, I'd like to see somebody take down cotton. It ain't going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So by the mid-1850s, you had moral suasion.
Nice.
Free soil politics and the slaveholding confidence collided. Congress cracked down with the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act. Southerners demanded obedience from Northerners, resistance, personal liberty laws, vigilance committees grew. Uncle Tom's Cabin fanned the flames.
And this violence, it's only going to escalate as we get closer and closer to the breaking point of 1861. From Elijah Lovejoy's murder in Alton to Bleeding Kansas to, one of the craziest stories, the caning of Charles Sumner on the Senate floor, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a future episode in 1856.
We'll get
The nation is arguing with not words now, but fists, clubs, rifles, and as much as they were with pamphlets and sermons.
Yeah, so big episode here. We are setting the table for Western expansion and the crisis of the 1850s. Big episode coming down the pipe. But thanks for tuning into this one. We appreciate all of our listeners for A Push for All. If you like the episode, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple iTunes, YouTube. Give us a review if you haven't. And if you got a topic you want us to cover, why don't you send us a message at A Push for All.
I would like to say that this is my first episode of not using the sound effects.
Well, I'd like to say that I kind of missed them.
Well, you guys provided whistling
Well,
and stuff.
hold on now. All right. We could do a little great episode.
Okay. I thought you were going to play like the happy one, like the.
Yeah.
I haven't played the happy one in a while, but it
seemed
doesn't
seemed
seem
abrupt.
Okay.
I don't know.
It
You're
doesn't
right. It's
seem
forced.
like
It's
it's
we'll
for
save
this
it for
episode.
next time. We'll save it. For
we'll
next
save
time.
it for next
Wait,
time.
wait. One more time. Suasion.
Yes. And speaking of next time, until next time, keep learning from yesterday to make sense of today.